So this is the last slideshow that I'll be giving to you guys, and it is a review of the course, just going over some finer points that I think you might need to master based on what I saw on the tests, or I'm sorry, on the homework, and a little bit from Chapter 9, just a tiny bit, and some ancient history review like conversions. There is a quiz that will be posted on Thursday as a Google Doc. It's due by Monday. And the homework that I want you to do is actually part of this slideshow, so you're not going to have any other homework besides what we do in this slideshow. So again, these 7 rules of validity. I think they should be pretty familiar to you right now. The distribution table that goes along with them, that's the tool to use with them. I'm going to refer to this a little bit in this slideshow, which is only about 10 minutes long, because some of you did not really seem to understand it, and I hope I did kind of a thorough job in the homework, going over the homework. I hope you had a chance to look at the video, but we'll go over that a little right now too. So again, another tool for validity. It's not just the rules and that placement chart, but also the chant and the figure chart is another way to determine whether or not a syllogism is valid. Again, these words here give you combinations or moods of a syllogism, and the que prioris, the secundae, that tells you what figure it is in. So any AAA in figure 1, which means that the middle term is in a certain place, which I'm not sure a lot of you realized, or remembered, I should say. I think at some point you did realize it, but maybe you just didn't remember it. The middle term has to be in a certain place. So AAA1 means that your syllogism has AAA is the propositions, but also middle term is always going to be, for figure 1, the subject in the major premise and the predicate in the minor premise. There's another method for determining validity. I don't know if you remember this. It was from a few weeks ago. This is that you can come up with an argument with the true premise and a false conclusion. This is the same form, and it's another argument. So if you have an argument and you're not sure whether or not it's valid, if you come up with an argument in the exact same form, so if it's all A propositions and it's in figure 1, and well, I shouldn't say that. If it's all propositions of a certain type and in figure 1, and your argument that you came up with is true premises and a false conclusion, you know both arguments are invalid, because any argument that can admit of a with true premises and a false conclusion is just invalid. You can never have a valid argument with true premises and a false conclusion. I will never ask you to actually do this method. I just want you to know it's another way to determine validity. There is another method using Venn diagrams with 3 circles. We've only used 2 so far, but I don't think we're going to do that. We need to master the material that we have looked at already. So we are skipping 8.5. Okay, so this is in place of homework in a Google Doc. I want you guys to have a pen or pencil and a paper handy. And there are some exercises on page 228 to 238. I pulled a few of them out here. I want you to try them. Look at what I have written here and pause the screen. And then when you have done this, I want you to start the video again and look at the next slide, and the answer is there. So go ahead and pause the screen and come back when you're ready. Okay, the answer is all C is W, no W is P, and no P is C. So we had, I gave you this hint that all C is W is the first premise, and that would be translating this part of the passage. Every congressman is wealthy. And you would change that to all congressmen are wealthy. All C is W or RW. No W is P, no P is C. The mood is AEE and the figure is 4. So what you might have wanted to do is go back to AEE 4 and see, does that take place? Figure 4 and AEE, yes, it is a valid syllogism because it shows up right here. Now, you may have wondered, how did I know it was figure 4? We'll go back to the syllogism, and you can see that the middle term W, that's what shows up in each of the premises, shows up in this configuration, and that makes it figure 4. It is the predicate of the major term and the subject of the minor term. The major term is C, the minor term is P, and here you have it properly set up. P, the minor term, shows up as the subject in the predicate, is in the conclusion, and the major term C shows up as the predicate. That is the proper way to set it up. Many of you missed this. You did not put the minor term here. You did not put the major term here. And because of that, you missed a lot of fallacies. The distribution wasn't correct. You weren't able to see what was wrong because you constructed it incorrectly. But yes, this is a figure 4, and it is valid. So try this one. Look at this, figure out the mood in the figure, and using the chant or the rules, determine whether or not it's valid. So pause this video, and when you come back, you'll see on the next slide. Okay, so this is the what you were looking at, the syllogism. The mood is O. It's an O proposition. A. This is an A proposition. O. It's in figure 2 because of the placement of the middle term. So you can see here the middle term. It's the predicate of both premises has the middle term in it, and that's what we have here. Now, it's AOO, and so if you looked at the chant, and in figure 2 in the chant, you will see Cesare Camestris Festino Barocco. You do not see OAO. I'm sorry, did I just say it was AOO? I'm not sure if I misspoke, but you do not see OAO. This is AOO, but you do not see OAO. And so you know, because the chant gives you every single valid syllogism, every single mood that works in figure 2, it is not valid. It also commits the fallacy of illicit major. You can see that here. So the major term here, P, is distributed in the conclusion, and if a term is distributed in the conclusion, it has to be distributed in the premise, and up here it is not distributed in the premise. So that's the major term up in the major premise here, not distributed. Therefore, it is that also shows that the syllogism is not valid. Okay, so here is a little bit, 3 more questions, a little bit of ancient review, and look at these and then try to answer them correctly, and pause, come back, and look at the answers on the next slide. Okay, so number 1, no, it is not logically equivalent. You cannot perform conversions on A propositions. I don't know if you remember that, but you can't. They don't end up meaning the same thing. Number 2, the translation is some college graduates are illiterate people. And number 3, if some college graduates are illiterate people is true. Sorry, this is a typo, so ignore that. But if some college graduates are illiterate people is true, so just skip over to this is true, then no college graduates are illiterate people is false. Because there's a lot of typos on this slide. I am sorry. Because no illiterate people are college graduates is the conversion of no college graduates are illiterate people. So this is a 2-step thing. You had to first make this the conversion, so your S and P between the two are the same. So your college graduates has to be the subject, and illiterate people has to be the predicate to put this on what you ultimately do, which is put it on the square of opposition. No college graduate students or illiterate people is actually the same, is logically equivalent to no illiterate people or college graduates, because you can do conversions on e-propositions. So that was the first step. And then it is the contradictory opposite of some college graduates or illiterate people. Because on the square of opposition, if you remember that, they are opposite each other and they have opposite truth values. So this, which is the opposite of the contradictory opposite of that, is false because this is true. Okay, so one last little snippet from your book. Chapter 9.3. Chapter 9 talks a lot about definitions and types of arguments. And all I want to pull from this is something that you probably picked up in this course, that when you talk about something, when you are using terms in your propositions, you want them to be well defined. So you don't want to give bad definitions or use terms that don't really convey what you mean, because you want a good communication and you want sound arguments. So again, a sound argument is valid with true premises. You want your premises to be true, and part of them being true is that you use the words correctly, and part of using words correctly is that you have good definitions. So your definition should not be circular. Terms that you use should not be circular. So if somebody says, well, what do you mean by cheater? Well, and you say, well, people who cheat on tests are cheaters. That really isn't informative. So you want to avoid, if somebody is pushing you in an argument, asking you what you mean by a word or something in your proposition, you want to have not give a circular argument. You don't want to give a circular definition. You don't want to give a definition that is too broad or too narrow. It should capture all the things that you want to capture with the word that you're using. So if you say that human woman is somebody with long hair, you are probably not capturing all those women that you want to capture with your term, because there's many women who don't have long hair. It's too narrow. And this is one of the things that can be really difficult if you want to say, well, define dog. And somebody says, well, it's a floppy-haired animal with 4 legs. Then you've excluded animals of dogs without floppy ears and dogs with only 3 legs, and it's again too narrow. So if somebody pushes you in an argument, if somebody asks you to please define your terms, you want to make sure that they're neither too broad nor too narrow. You want to avoid emotional language. You want your argument to just rest on truth and not worry about persuading somebody. And of course, you want to be clear. You want your definitions to be clear. You don't want them full of big words that nobody else understands. You will not be tested on definitions. I just want to kind of go over this very quickly. A lot of it is common sense, and I think that's why your book leaves it to the end. It's kind of a completely different topic than everything we've been looking at, but I just wanted to throw it in here. There will be an open book quiz posted Thursday as a Google Doc, and it will be due by Monday. And then on Tuesday, we will have our final Zoom session, and you guys can bring any questions. I will have graded your quiz, and we can kind of go over what's going to be on the test, which will be your 4th quarter quiz. It's not really a final test. It'll be your 4th quarter, not quiz, your 4th quarter test. It'll be on everything that we've been going over in the 4th quarter. So bring some questions, and if you have any questions during the week and need to talk to me, my email is on the Google Doc. Always feel free to contact me.